Hello, my name is Doug Bowman from Virginia Tech. I'm presenting this paper exploring multiscale navigation of homogeneous and dense objects with progressive refinement in VR. This work was done in collaboration with my students Leonardo Pavanatto and Alexander Giovannelli, and also our colleagues at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. Our colleagues at Lawrence Livermore are studying additive manufacturing techniques. Additive manufacturing produces complex objects with complicated geometry. The parts can be large, yet they can contain microscopic yet critical defects that need to be located and understood. Doing this inspection in 2D can be inefficient, as users have to navigate through slices of the object, and this can also reduce spatial awareness of the location of the defects. So we started with the problem of how to analyze small internal features in large volumes. We approached this by using a digital twin of the 3D printed part, which is CT scanned and then brought into VR, and then multiscale navigation in VR in order to find and analyze the defects. The challenge is that these objects can be both dense, so the defects are inside the object and not visible from the outside, and homogeneous, so that inside the object many views look the same and awareness of location is difficult. So our objective was to design techniques for VR multiscale navigation for such inspection tasks, and then investigate the trade-offs for various design features of those techniques. So we call our approach PRIMO, Progressive Refinement for the Inspection of Multiscale Objects. PRIMO includes a clipping plane that allows us to cut the volume to see inside, several discrete levels of scale that the user can navigate, an object-centered approach where we scale the object but keep the user at the same scale, and fast animations that allow us to minimize simulator sickness while allowing users to maintain spatial orientation during scaling operations. Two key design factors that we identified include navigation style and display mode. So for navigation style, we investigated both structured and unstructured navigation. In structured navigation, the part or the current level of scale is divided into octants, and users can scale down by choosing from one of the 8 discrete octants. In the unstructured style, users can place a freeform cube anywhere in the current level of scale in order to specify the new level of scale. The display mode technique also has 2 options. We can either display only the currently focused region, which we call selection, or we can always display the entire object, which we call everything. So we designed and ran an experiment to investigate the impact of these 2 factors. We had 24 participants, and we varied navigation style and display mode within subjects. We measured speed, time to complete a multiscale navigation task. We measured awareness of defect location and overall understanding of the defects that were seen in several successive trials. And these were evaluated via the questions you see on the right, which were presented in VR after trials. We ran pre and post SSQs to evaluate simulator sickness, and we also did a user interview. So the task in the experiment was to first identify the location of the defect, which we marked with these 3 yellow rods. Then adjust the clipping plane so that the defect location was visible, and then navigate down 3 levels of scale to see that region in detail using one of the 4 techniques, and finally reading out a number that was seen at that lowest level of scale in order to confirm arrival at the right location. So here's the first technique that we studied. So this is the selection structured technique. So as we navigate through levels of scale, only the current level of scale is shown, and structured navigation is used. So we're choosing from 8 octants at each level of scale discretely. The second technique is selection unstructured. So here, again, we only see the focused area, but navigation style is unstructured. So we position the cube around the location of the defects and scale down to that region. The everything structured technique is the same as technique 1, except that we maintain the view of the entire object all the time. So when we scale down to a lower level, the context remains. And then finally, the everything unstructured technique, where again, We keep a view of the entire object, but navigation is done in an unstructured way. So here are the objective results. For speed of task completion, we found a significant difference due to navigation style, and in that, unstructured was faster overall than structured navigation. And this was contrary to our initial hypothesis. We thought that structured navigation, because you're only choosing discretely between 8 octants, would be fast, but unstructured actually ended up being faster because users could simply put the defect near the center of the selection box and then press the button multiple times to navigate through several levels of scale very quickly. We also found a significant difference due to display mode, and here we found that showing only the selection allowed faster navigation than showing everything. For awareness and understanding, we did not find a significant difference in the awareness and understanding questions due to display mode. However, there were some subjective results. Participants who used the selection display mode said that they felt mentally separated from the full object, so they weren't as aware of the context of the region. And in the everything display mode, people perceived that they had a better sense of that context. However, they also said that it felt visually cluttered. There was a significant difference in the question results due to navigation style, so unstructured navigation led to higher overall object understanding in this study. People who used unstructured navigation were more aware of the location of individual defects and all of the defects in a single object. Participants said that unstructured navigation felt more resilient. If the user selection was off by a small amount, it didn't matter as long as the defect was still inside the box. But with structured navigation, if the defect was found near a border, then users could miss the right region and be forced to navigate back up before they could navigate down again into the correct region. For simulator sickness, we didn't find any significant differences across conditions. Only 2 out of our 24 participants reported mild discomfort. There were some comments in the interview that being physically inside the larger object in the everything condition felt somewhat uncomfortable, but this was not reflected in the SSQ. So in conclusion, our study found that the unstructured navigation style was both faster for multiscale navigation and led to better memory of defect locations. So we suggest that multiscale navigation of the sort that we tested in this study would benefit from unstructured navigation as opposed to dividing the object into discrete regions. However, we found a trade-off between the selection and everything display modes. Selection led to less visual clutter and was faster for the actual navigation task. However, participants perceived that they had better spatial awareness with the everything mode. So we suggest a potential hybrid approach where the default is to show only the selected region, but with the press of the button, the user could bring up the entire object. There were some limitations of our study, of course. We only studied objects with a cuboid shape, and obviously this did not represent the wide range of possible 3D printed parts. Also, in our study, we assumed that the defect locations were known, which might not always be true, although our colleagues do have artificial intelligence techniques that can predict where the defects might be. We propose that we should do some future work. We want to explore additions to these multiscale navigation techniques that have wayfinding cues such as breadcrumbs or hierarchical maps. We also want to study multiscale navigation in domains beyond additive manufacturing, such as geological data or medical scans. Thank you for your attention.